This beloved street cleaner was denied his dream birthday vacation when his employer told him he wasn't allowed to accept a gift from his community. But thanks to a travel agency that decided to run a surprise contest with very strict rules, he'll soon be taking his trip anyway. Paul Spears has been a street cleaner in the city of Beckenham since 2017, and his community absolutely adores him. They say he's the kind of person who just naturally lifts people's spirits, and the sound of him playing Elvis while he works has become a welcome sound around town. So when they learned that he had only traveled abroad once, to Portugal, and had always wanted to return, Paul's community raised £3,000 to give him the vacation as a 63rd birthday gift. But when it came time to actually give him the gift, Paul's employer put a quick stop to the fun, saying that he was contractually disallowed from receiving any monetary gifts or incentives from the community. Luckily, a travel agency called On the Beach caught wind of this, and they knew exactly what to do. They immediately started their own competition for a £3,000 trip to Portugal, stipulating that the winner must meet certain criteria, including that they must love Elvis Presley, be between 62 and 64, and be a street cleaner in Beckenham. Shockingly, Paul was quickly selected as the competition's winner, and while his community rejoices at home, he will soon be celebrating in Portugal. This cat found himself employed and adopted after he continued to show up to the same construction site day after day. When the construction crew started their new job, they quickly realized that the same cat kept joining them, watching them work, and sometimes curling up for a nap nearby. Once it was clear that he was going to be coming to the site every single day, showing up on time each morning when they started working, one of the workers decided to make him his own uniform in the form of a high-vis jacket that would help keep him safe, even taking custom measurements to make sure the uniform fit him perfectly. The construction crew even gave him his own official employee ID badge, naming him the Capataz, which is a play on the Spanish word capataz, meaning foreman. After the cat worked very hard as foreman for the entire job, the construction crew felt like they had really bonded with him, and they couldn't just leave him behind as they moved on to another job. So one of the workers decided to adopt him permanently, and he's now living a cozy life as a retired foreman. This 85-year-old diver became friends with a fish 30 years ago and still visits his friend nearly every day. Hiroyuki Arakawa was part of a scuba team that constructed an underwater Shinto shrine in the 90s. One day, he noticed a sheep's head wrasse with a badly injured mouth. Knowing that the fish probably wouldn't be able to feed herself because of the injury, he decided to help, and he cracked open shellfish for her with his hammer, feeding her 5 times a day for 10 days. The injury soon healed, and the fish was able to feed herself again, but she'd already strongly bonded with the man who had saved her. From then on, every day that he worked, she would come up to him, and she'd follow him around whether or not he had food to offer. He started looking forward to seeing her too, naming her Yuriko. After the underwater shrine was built, Hiroyuki was entrusted to oversee it, so he continued to visit it and his new friend regularly. And 3 decades later, the story is still the same. Hiroyuki is around, he rings an underwater bell near the shrine to let her know that he's there, and then she swims up to join him for his dive. The relationship is deeply meaningful for Hiroyuki, who says he has an amazing sense of accomplishment in his heart when describing their bond. This bachelor party was crashed by puppies, and every attendee left with a new 4-legged family member. Mitchell Craddock and his friends traveled from Michigan to Tennessee to spend 5 days hanging out in a cabin and riding ATVs to celebrate Mitchell's upcoming wedding. Their first morning, they were cooking breakfast with the door open when a dog came by and sat just outside the door, gladly accepting any food and water that they would give her. The men quickly grew fond of her, and they named her Annie. And after a while, they noticed that she kept running back and forth from a particular location outside. They followed her there and spotted a puppy looking out at them from a little den. Realizing that Annie was a stray, they knew they couldn't leave her and her puppies alone and unprotected in the woods. They pulled out each puppy one by one for a total of 7, and although they were dirty and flea-bitten, they seemed overall well-fed and healthy. They brought Annie and her puppies back to the cabin and gave each of them a bath, and the bachelor party started looking more like a puppy daycare than a 4-wheeler retreat. By day 3 of the trip, the beer fund had officially turned into the puppy food fund. In the end, Annie was adopted by Mitchell's grandparents, and the puppies all found a home with a groomsman or family member, so they all got to continue growing up together once everyone got home. Now, the puppies are all grown up and healthy, and they still get to see each other from time to time. These cats saved a family cafe from going out of business, and they did it by continuously climbing on and knocking over their decor. The Diorama restaurant is a train-themed restaurant in Japan with model trains running throughout. Like many other small businesses, they experienced significant financial difficulty in 2020. But on June 10th of that year, the restaurant's owner, Naoki, noticed a week-old kitten all alone outside their front doors, and he decided to take him in and name him Simba. The next day, Simba's mother showed up, so he started feeding her too and letting her come and go as she pleased. And one rainy day, Simba's mother brought the rest of her kittens with her and they didn't leave. Naoki's family was already struggling to get by and facing the possibility of losing their business, and he knew that each new mouth to feed would make their budget even tighter. But feeling like Simba's mother had put her trust in him, he knew he couldn't let her down. So he officially adopted all of them, and he started posting photos and videos of them climbing around the model trains to the restaurant's social media page. What he didn't expect is how much the internet would love the railway cats and their antics. They created huge new demand for the restaurant and allowed it to stay open. Now, as a thank you to the cat community for helping his family, Naoki has continued rescuing cats and even added a cat hotel and shelter to the top floor of the restaurant, where people can sip tea with adoptable rescue cats and maybe even take one home. This Harvest Mouse is a new homeowner, and his little neon abode comes with a backstory that he'll be eager to tell his friends about. His cozy house was once flying across the courts at Wimbledon, bouncing between the best tennis players in the world before it became part of a mouse neighborhood in the countryside. Over 50,000 tennis balls are used at Wimbledon each year, but they're not just thrown away when it's over. Some are sold to fans at the event, and the rest are donated to charitable causes, which in some years have included the Wildlife Trust in the UK. Harvest mice love to curl up in small spaces, and their natural nests are about the size and shape of a tennis ball. But they're currently in the middle of their own housing crisis due to habitat loss, so conservationists decided to repurpose the donated tennis balls into luxury mouse condos. They cut small holes in them as doors, and then place them in spots elevated off the ground, which both mimics their natural nesting environment and helps keep ground predators away. And because the tennis balls are waterproof, they also help harvest mice survive flooding, which often threatens their natural nests. The mice seem pretty grateful, and they don't need any coaxing to curl up inside their tennis ball penthouses. This rat earned a tiny gold medal for a 5-year career of life-saving work in Cambodia. Magawa was trained by non-profit Apopo to detect landmines left behind from former conflicts. All African giant pouched rats are known for being intelligent and happiest when given lots of mental stimulation, but Magawa was always exceptional. At only 2.6 pounds, he was perfect for landmine detection since he was too small to set them off himself. He graduated at the top of his class from a year-long training program and could sniff and search an area the size of a tennis court in just 20 minutes. Plus, unlike metal detectors, Magawa could ignore harmless scraps of metal, making him much more efficient for the job. During his career, he found a total of 71 landmines and 38 other dangerous items, making over 56 acres of land safe for farming, housing development, and recreation. In 2020, Magawa's work led him to become the first rat to ever receive the PDSA Gold Medal, a highly regarded award for animal bravery. Throughout his career, Magawa lived among friends in a high enrichment environment, with a weekly checkup to make sure he was always happy and healthy. All Apopo hero rats can retire whenever they decide to stop completing tasks, and in 2021, Magawa decided he preferred napping and chose to retire. He spent the rest of his time staying home with his friends, enjoying bananas and peanuts. Today, his legacy is carried on by the newest hero rats, who are not only finding landmines, but also detecting tuberculosis and locating survivors of disasters. A man in Wales couldn't figure out why he kept waking up to a tidied up shed after leaving things out on his workbench, so he set up a camera and found that this tiny mouse cleaner was coming each night to keep things organized. And believe it or not, this isn't even the first time that he's personally crossed paths with an organized mouse. Rodney Holbrook says that he'd been noticing something strange happening in his shed for the past 2 months or so. Every time he left something out on his workbench, he'd find it placed inside a nearby box in the morning. And it didn't matter what the objects were, clothespins, cups, corks, screws, you name it, would all end up in the box if they were left out overnight. So Rodney set out a camera and identified the mysterious housekeeper as this mouse, who he appropriately named Welsh Tidy Mouse. He says that Welsh Tidy Mouse seems to be using the box to store peanuts that he finds by the bird feeders, and then he covers them up with the objects to keep them hidden. But whatever his motivation is, Rodney is happy with the situation, as he enjoys not having to tidy up quite so much anymore, since his mouse friend rarely misses a night of cleanup. And as unusual as Welsh Tidy Mouse may seem, just a few years ago, Rodney actually helped his friend Steve set up a camera in his shed under the same circumstances, and the two caught yet another mouse cleaner on camera tidying up his shed, perhaps a relative of Welsh Tidy Mouse. I'm Jen, and I post something positive every day.